You're listening to the Giant Shoulders Podcast, a show all about gratitude and legacy. I'm your host, Ryan Augustine. Let's get into today's episode. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Giant Shoulders Podcast. I am stoked, absolutely stoked for this episode today. Not only because of the great background Jordan Montgomery has going on, but for the person he is and for him jumping on today to spend some time with us. Jordan, thank you so much for being on today.
Ryan, thanks for having me, man. It's an honor to be on the show. I love the theme and your effort in bringing people together and sharing a great message. So thanks for what you do. Honored to be with you.
Yeah. So I think, the premise of the show, we were just kind of talking through it a little bit. Excited to kind of hear some of the people who have made an impact on your life and then the impact you want to leave kind of behind as your legacy here. But before we get into that and before we dive in, I guess give people an overview. I mean, you and I have kind of had a little bit of a relationship over the past number of years. Kind of you've been, kind of this motivational speaker and a really, really strong influence kind of in my business and in the community that I live in. But for the people who don't know who you are, who Jordan Montgomery is, like, give us a 10,000-foot overview.
Well, I live in Iowa City, Iowa. Grew up in a really small rural town in southeast Iowa. So I'm an Iowa guy through and through. We live in Iowa today. I'm married. My wife's name's Ashley. We have 3 children. I'm a girl dad. So we have 3 young girls.
Nice.
And I'm a performance coach, keynote speaker, work with a lot of people in sales and the world of sports and business. And so, my all day, every day is working with people like you, right? It's coaching and training salespeople and leaders to be their very best. And I'm fortunate to get to do the work that we do. And our mission is to make people happy, have more fun, and help people make a little more money. So it's been going well. Grateful to do this work.
Cool, man. That's awesome to hear. So I guess I didn't even know you were all girl dad. I've got 2 of my own, 3-year-old and an 11-month-old. And man, I'll say before I had girls, I wanted boys. But there's nothing better than being a girl dad. I will just say it's been such a blessing.
Well, I'll say this. I'm fully convinced your eyes are open wide. There's something about you get pulled into girl activities and things that I would never know about, Ryan. I've become an expert in. It sounds like you can relate. So anyway, I'm grateful, man. We have healthy kids and 3 wonderful daughters, and I wouldn't have it any other way. That's for sure.
That's awesome, man. Cool. So cool to hear that. Awesome. So the premise of the show obviously is just who are we standing on the shoulders of? I think that's such a cool thing to think about. And it's something, any sort of positive momentum in my life, I feel like I automatically think to the people or the person who made that kind of possible. And it could be a multitude of people. And so I would love to hear kind of your top list, your Mount Rushmore, so to speak, of the people in Jordan's life who have been the giants of the shoulders of the giants that you're standing on.
Well, I took your question seriously. When you asked me that question prior to this interview and put a little thought into who are the people that I've really learned from, not just in business, but in life. And there's so many, right, over time. I believe that we're all the byproduct of thousands of people who poured into us and taught us and trained us, and some through their example, some through their time or through their role personally or professionally. And I go all the way back to, like childhood mentors and high school coaches. And so there's so many people to thank, pastors, friends, family members. But I ultimately decided there's really 5 people that I can think about over the last decade. So if I think about the last 10 years, so shout out to all those people that helped me in my childhood years and in my teenage years. I think there's 5 people over the last decade that have really been transformative in my personal and professional journey. And I think there's things that they've taught me that I'd love to download with you and our listeners as we try to help some people and equip some people. And so, I'd be happy to share who those people are and what they've taught me. And again, hopefully some of what they've taught me is transcended down to other people through this show. So the first one is John Wright Sr. John Wright Sr. is a former managing partner at Northwestern Mutual. Most people know who he is. If you have any affiliation with Northwestern Mutual, you know the name John Wright Sr. He was the most successful managing partner maybe in the history of the company. And there were 8 managing partners that came from his office. So he was in a small market, grew and developed 8 different high-level executive leaders inside the company, Northwestern Mutual. And when I think about John, I think about the power of optimism. John was my business coach for 3 years. He carried me through and walked me through the most difficult season of my life. And in that difficult season, I would call John at 5 a.m. I'd call him at 10 o'clock at night. I'd call him on the weekend. He just spent literally, Ryan, thousands of hours with me, unpaid, out of the goodness of his heart, to help me through a difficult season. And I believe that when we go through difficult season, God puts people on our path to help us on our journey. And so John was just one of those guys that was there for me. And in my darkest of days, he would remind me of all the many reasons that I had to be grateful. You know, I mean, I'd literally call him with just fear or shame or anxiety, and he would find a way to remind me that things are good. You know, life is good. I have a lot to be grateful for. And I think it's Ralph Waldo Emerson said, nothing great in life could ever be accomplished without optimism. And that embodies John Wright Sr. He's just positive, forward thinking, optimistic. And that mentality is contagious, you know? So, you know, if his name popped up on my phone today, I'd just start smiling and laughing. He has that kind of infectious energy. So I learned the power of positivity and optimism through John Wright Sr., and I'm forever grateful for the ways that he changed my life. Number 2 would be Tim Bohannon. Tim Bohannon taught me the power of generosity and abundance. Tim is still to this day one of the most generous people that I've ever known. The short story of really my relationship with Tim is Tim took me in again in a unique season of my life where I really needed to be mentored and cared for. And I was in my late 20s. I'd run into some real hardship in business, and Tim showed me radical generosity that doesn't make any sense. But the real lessons that Tim taught me were after I left Tim's organization. So I was really supposed to be there for an extended period of time. I moved home to marry my now bride, so my wife, Ashley. And, you know, I remember just feeling really, I just felt really guilty about not following through on my commitment to stay with Tim long term. But if I was going to marry Ashley, it meant that I was going to move back to Iowa to pursue her. And Tim blessed that move, even though it meant that he was going to lose money. He had put in a lot of energy and effort. He wasn't going to get to reap the benefit, at least not, you know, financially, for his hard work.
Yeah.
But his attitude of abundance, I think, saw in me that I was going to be a father and a husband, and that was more important than, you know, my efforts in business. And from day one, he blessed the move. And all of the anxiety that I had just kind of faded because he cared for me. He just said, man, I want you to go start a family. You know, you love Iowa, move back and be close to your family and close to the people that you love.
Yeah.
And when I asked him if I could pay him back, he just said no. He just said, you know, pay it forward. And I'll never forget that. And Ryan, it wasn't like $10 that I owed him. Okay. We'll just say that there was a lot of money. And more importantly than that, it was all the time and energy that he had invested in me.
Yeah.
So you learn a lot about people by how they treat folks that can't do anything for them. Right? Like that's a test of a person's character, right? It's like when the strings aren't attached, when the strings go away, you start to learn what people are made of and what they're all about. Still to this day, Tim and his wife, Joey, follow up with me, care for me, connect on social media. They came to our wedding. They've been just incredibly supportive. And so I learned what it means to be radically generous and abundant from Tim Bohannon. The third person is Dave Kiecker. Dave taught me energy and kindness. Dave has the best energy of anyone I've ever known. And I believe a leader's job is to control the energy in the room. So oddly enough, all 3 of the guys that I've mentioned are managing partners. I should also mention this. I've learned from many strong women in my life. The 5 people that I picked are men. It just so happens kind of by chance. But Dave learned from Tim Bohannon. Tim Bohannon learned from John Wright. So John Wright Sr. recruited and developed Tim Bohannon. He recruited and developed Dave Kiecker. So there's this weird family tree that I've been fortunate to be a part of, and all 3 of these guys are connected. But Dave Kiecker taught me what it means to have great energy and to make people feel special. I think he's one of the kindest people that I've ever met. Yeah. And he has this ability to make people feel like they matter. You know, I think 2 of the things that a leader could say to you directly or indirectly that are most powerful are, I see you and you matter. I see you, I notice, and you matter. You're important to me. And Dave has the ability to just make people feel special. And he remembers details. He's thoughtful. He goes out of his way. He delivers on differences. People buy differences, not similarities. And he's just unique and different. I couldn't even begin to describe the many ways that Dave's made me feel special. But here's a kind of a cool story, Ryan, about Dave. My first trip to Dave's office was a really memorable one. He knew everything about me. So he knew way more than any man should know about another man, right? Like he just knew everything about me. And I'll never forget, I was leaving his office and I called my wife. And I said, babe, you'll never believe this visit that I just had to Dave's office. And we were still kind of trying to get to know each other. Yeah. And my wife said, no, you'll never believe this. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? Like, what happened on the home front that I missed out on? And there was a bouquet of flowers on my kitchen table. And my wife, like, we're FaceTiming, and she shows me the bouquet of flowers. And there's a card kind of inside the flowers that says, to Ashley, my wife's name, from Dave and Nikki Kiecker, Northwestern Mutual, Indianapolis, Indiana. Thanks for letting us steal Jordan for the last 24 hours.
Wow.
He had never met my wife, but he knew, he picked up in small conversation that my work requires me to travel. And he just made it a point to serve my wife, you know, to reach out to her and to create a moment. And I thought, man, that's somebody who gets kindness and being thoughtful. And so,
yeah.
So Dave Keeker's another one.
That's cool, man. Oh, is that cool?
Great guy. So I'm going to say this. If you don't know John Wright Sr., Tim Bohannon, or Dave Kiecker, and you have the opportunity to get to know them, whether it's you or somebody listening on the podcast, I'd love for more people to know these men, and they're special, man, and they're different. So Dave is one of my best friends today. One of the guys that I'm closest with, one of the guys that I'm learning from all the time, and he's taught me a ton. So Dave would be number 3. Number 4 is a guy named Ben Newman, who a lot of people know. I've learned so much from Ben, and it's probably fair to say this. I've learned so much from all of these guys, right? I couldn't just pin it on one or two things. I've learned so much from each one of these people. But when I think about the one or two ways in which these people have helped me or taught me, you know, Ben has taught me the power of persistence and the power of habit. Ben is the hardest working person I've ever met. I met a lot of people who've worked hard. These other guys that I mentioned have worked really hard. But when I think about doing the little things well, like Ben wakes up at 2:44 a.m. every day. You know, he's worked out for like 600 days in a row. And I kind of joke with people about Ben, like Ben's success is largely because of his consistency. Like he's a talented guy. He's a hardworking guy. There's a lot of people that work hard. There's not as many that are consistent.
Yeah.
And so it's being able to work hard over an extended period of time. And Ben's just been really consistent. So if you don't know Ben, he's a performance coach. He's a speaker. He works with athletes and business people and thinks big about the future. He's, he's super driven, lives life on mission. Ben's a guy that I care a lot about. So he's actually the guy that the reason probably, Ryan, I'm in the business that I'm in today. And he's been a real key mentor in my life in the coaching and speaking space. So that's Ben. The last thing I'll say about Ben, this is the quote that I think about when I think about Ben. People don't decide their future. They decide their habits, and their habits decide their future. People don't decide their future. They decide their habits, and their habits decide their future. Ben's been such an awesome example of the power of habit and what can happen when you stay true to the little things and the little details in life. So that's Ben. And then the last one, man, is my dad. My dad is I didn't plan to get choked up over this. He's my best friend, and it's probably been one of the best relationships I've ever been fortunate enough to have, and taught me what it means to love other people and to love yourself, and taught me what it means to show people the love of Christ. And I just feel so lucky to call him my dad. So his name is Jay Montgomery, and he has taught me just what it means to care about people and treat people right and be compassionate and give grace. And just really thankful for that relationship that I get to share with him. So those are 5 guys that have meant something to me. And again, I've learned from a lot of strong women. When I think about the 5 people who really shaped my life over the last decade, the last 10 years, Ryan, it's really these 5. And again, there's many others. I feel bad that I can't brag about all the people that I care about, but those are the 5 people who've been giants in my life, and I've been fortunate to stand on their shoulders.
Man, Jordan, thank you so much for sharing, man. That is that is one of the most epic Mount Rushmores I've ever heard. That is so cool. That is so cool, man.
A good group.
I think the kind of the legacy that you're talking through with John Wright Sr., with Tim Bohannon, Dave Kiecker. I think that's really cool because you can see the waterfall, the ripple effect there. The mentor from in the example from Ben, and then just that awesome relationship that you share with your dad. That's the kind of dad I think we're both trying to be, right? And I think that hits hard as you start to have your own kids, and you're like, all right, like, Dad, you were right about all these things. Like I didn't know that at the time, but now, now I do, and I think that's great perspective, man. So thanks so much for sharing. That was awesome. It was a pleasure to hear that from you.
Well, and I think, Ryan, this is true of your journey too, right? We're connected really through a company, right? And the company is Northwestern Mutual. And so the odd part is, outside of my dad, the reason that I know these 4 men is because of an organization. It's because of a company. Mm-hmm. And that company is Northwestern Mutual, and it's the reason that I've been connected to you. And so I want to give Northwestern a shout out. I'm no longer a financial advisor. I don't belong to the company contractually. I work with a lot of people at Northwestern, and I bleed blue and care deeply about so many people inside the organization, still think the world of the company. But I just feel really fortunate, man, to have met Northwestern Mutual, to be a part of the Northwestern family. And if you're listening to this and you're a financial advisor, you're a leader inside Northwestern, maybe you're brand new to the company, I just want people to know how special this organization is and how special the relationships are inside of this organization. My life has been radically changed because I met this opportunity. So I wanted to shed some light on that.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Yeah, appreciate that. Yeah, it is a very cool fraternity of brothers and sisters who are willing to lift each other up and support each other. So,
amen.
But yeah. So, all right, I can't wait for this now. All right, so legacy. So looking forward, like 20 years, 30 years, maybe just 10 years. I don't know what your goal. You've probably got some really specific goals based on some of the conversation that we've had already. But like, what do you want people to say about Jordan in the future? What do you want people to say if somebody came on this podcast in 10 or 15 years and said Jordan was a shoulder that I stood on in life and in business? Like, what do you want people to say about you?
Hopefully that I loved people, that I was loving and caring, and I hope at the end of my days, Ryan, that I shared with people and showed people the love of Christ. I believe that I'm here because of God's love, and He's given me everything that I have, and I feel a deep responsibility to show His love to others. And yeah, that would be it, man. That my life was made worth it, not because of what I accomplished in business or community, but because I've been entrusted to show other people His love. And I guess my hope would be that people would come to know Him through my journey here on earth, that if people know the life of Jesus in a deeper way. I know that's not always the popular message, and it just happens to be my truth. So, others don't have to agree with that. I love it. That's when you ask me, what do you want people to remember you by? I hope that's part of it. And the other thing I would say is I desire to be respected most by people who know me the best.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, if I impress a lot of people with what I accomplish in business or sports or whatever, but I lose respect with the people closest to me, then I don't really care. To me, that's not much of a legacy. So I want to be remembered most, respected most by people who knew me the best. And that's my daughters and my wife and my immediate family and my close circle of friends. And so if I can win with those people and represent those people well and know that I made a difference in their life, I think that would be a life well lived.
Man, that's so great. I love that. I'm striving every day to live on mission for God and trying to live outside of myself and show people that love as well. And I think that's something that gives me purpose. I resonate so much with that. And I just want to say, from somebody who's been impacted by you, thank you. It's coming through. So I appreciate the way that you lead, the way that you carry yourself in business, and so it's been cool to watch you from afar, and now you get to have you on the show is an honor. But yeah, so I just wanted to give you that feedback. It's been evident, I'll just say, from how you carry yourself. So.
Well, I appreciate your spirit, man. I mean that. Like, you have a grateful heart, and even in this brief discussion, I've just sensed your humility and your authenticity, and you're going to do great things through this podcast, through business and life, because of the way that God created you. And so I just want to encourage you, man, to continue being who you are. And if I can do anything to help you and help you grow this podcast and move your mission forward, I'm a big fan of Ryan's, and I'm in your corner. So just know that.
Thanks, Jordan. I appreciate it, man. So before we close real quick, where can people find you? You've got a company, just give us a little bit about where we can connect with you.
Yeah, so the company that we own is Montgomery Companies, and it's a full-scale coaching and consulting firm. So we have 9 different people who coach on our platform. And the best way to learn more is probably go to our website, montgomerycompanies.com, just like it sounds. You can find us on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. We're fairly active on social media. Instagram handle is Jordan M. Montgomery. Just started to use Twitter a little bit, so we're catching up on Twitter. But and then we do some live webinars that are free. We've done a lot of work with John Wright, who's another advisor at Northwestern Mutual. And so anytime we do something free, we're going to share that on social media as well, so you can enter into a free training or webinar experience. So that would be just a few of the ways that people could find us.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jordan, for that. Thank you for coming on the show today. You've served me by being here, and our listeners as well. This is one of my favorite episodes that we've done. This has been really cool. So appreciate your time, appreciate your heart. Thanks for serving others, and we'll be in touch. I'm looking forward to seeing the response to this, and so thanks for being on today.
Hey, praise God. It's been an honor. Be blessed. Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks, Jordan.